All right, so the last video about GTA 6 had a lot of good discussion in the comments about whether it's going to be a success or a failure, and what the reasoning why was, and it kind of made me think. Well, first of all, you guys gave me a lot of good things to think about, and it also made me think I need to better outline why I think it's going to be a failure and what led me to believe that. So, this video we're going to go into a few articles that kind of show you the reasons why GTA 6 is not going to perform like 5 did, or at least why I think it's not going to. And also at the end, if you guys are numbers nerds like I am, I put together a spreadsheet to kind of do some sales projections to kind of give you an idea of the environment in which this is going on. So before we get into all of that, gameplay today is Hellbreak. Now Hellbreak is not out yet, but it's on Steam with a free demo, so you can check that out right now. It's like very Doom inspired, and it's a really freaking fun game. Like, I'm having a great amount of fun with this. It's basically an arena shooter. You kind of survive against this horde of demons and try and kill as many as you can, get the highest score you can possibly get. There's a leaderboard. There's all kinds of interesting stuff. But the best part about this game, I think, is the music. So we're gonna just kind of take a look at the music, the game, listen to the music, and just kind of absorb it for a minute. So let's check that out. So yeah, you can see that it's very Doom vibes, especially with that music in there. So that's Hellbreak. I'll put a link in the description to the demo, and you guys can check that out. So let's just jump right into the articles, and we're gonna start off with a couple of departures that I wanted to outline. The first one is Dan Houser, obviously. I mean, I talked about him the last video, but just to summarize, my suspicion is that Dan was seeing the writing on the wall with Rockstar about things being very much more activistic. And not like it was with GTA 5's creation, and I think that's why he stepped down. Now, that is speculation on my part. It may not be the case, but, you kind of, regardless of why he stepped down, he is very much going to be missed. I mean, it was his idea to do this Bonnie and Clyde style GTA game in the first place. And I guess he never got a chance to actually make that a reality. I mean, he kind of put the framework together for it, but the actual production of the game, he was gone before that all really properly kicked off. So this is very much not his story anymore. So who knows what they did with it after his departure. But I'm sure it's not going to be what he intended and what he would have made. And we're going to notice it, I'm sure. So regardless of his reason for departure, he's going to leave a huge hole in GTA 6. The other one that's really going to be noticeable is Laszlo Jones. He is known as being a writer and producer for the other GTAs, and also he was the radio host in the Grand Theft Auto series. So we're not only going to miss his contributions to the game, but also his voice on the radio, which begs the question, what are they going to do with the radio in GTA 6? I mean, this is supposed to be modern era, so are they even going to have a radio? Are they even going to have a DJ? Is it going to be just music? Who knows? It'll be interesting to find that out, because that was a central part of GTA games, to kind of hear about different things about the lore and the world that you're inhabiting, just from the perspective of like radio news coming in. That was kind of neat. So he's going to be greatly missed. And he didn't leave for professional reasons. He actually left because I have it outlined here. This was his sister's terminal. The reason behind this was his sister's terminal cancer diagnosis, which came just weeks after the launch of Red Dead Redemption 2 in 2018. He left in 2020, so he still stayed there a couple of years, but it was for personal reasons. So you can't fault him for that, for sure. But yeah, he's going to be missed. Dan Houser's going to be missed. There's a bunch of other people that have also left. So the shift in Rockstar has been very noticeable behind the scenes, because I'm sure that the corporate culture is completely different than it was even when they were working on Red Dead Redemption 2. So it'll be a very different game. because it was developed by a very different team. Even though it's still branded Rockstar, it's not going to be the same Rockstar. The next thing I really wanted to talk about is kind of in the same vein of that shifting, that shifting tone within Rockstar, the different group of people that are running the place now. And that is coming from this article. GTA 6 writers asked to be less crude towards minorities, says report. And what they're referencing here is the Bloomberg report. I'm going to put a link in the description to that article as well as this one. But we're just going to read this blurb here and then kind of get into the details. According to a Bloomberg report, Rockstar is asking its writers to be less crude towards transgender people and other minorities in the sequel who have been common targets of throwaway gags in previous titles. In 2022, Rockstar quietly removed perceived transphobic content in the re-release of GTA 5 on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and S, including a Captain Space Toy action figure which originally had an interchangeable genitalia and a trans caricatures that would spawn outside of the Cockatoos nightclub. These changes were never officially acknowledged by Rockstar, but they seemingly came about following a campaign from LGBTQ+ games industry group Out Marketing Games, who penned a letter to the developer requesting the removal of extremely harmful stereotypes. So I'm also going to include a link to that penned letter, and we're going to talk about that. But first, let's take a look at that Bloomberg article, because there's some other interesting stuff in here as well. So obviously, they said it's going to be a very different story, and they're going to be taking out those crude elements of humor towards minorities. So they're not going to be punching down anymore, as it were. And they're only going to make fun of, I guess they're only going to make fun of white people, I guess. So that's going to be the crude humor in the game. Now, I don't know how well that's going to go over, but if they get very preachy, which they likely will, it's going to be noticed. I mean, that's the climate that we're in right now. Is we've seen so many games take this very left-wing perspective and get all preachy and lecture to their customers about how they should think and feel and act. And gamers are done with it. Gamers are very sensitive to that, and they will walk away from it in droves. And we've seen that in 2023, and especially this past year in 2024. The massive failures that have happened. So gamers being that sensitive to this, and if they're going to be pushing that envelope in GTA 6, Rockstar is in for a rude awakening, I'm sure, because the slightest hint of wokeness and people are tuning out. So hopefully they know better than to get all preachy and soapboxy, but I'm not holding my breath towards it, at least. The other thing I wanted to talk about in this article is another interesting aspect of this, and it's in this highlighted text here, 2018's Red Dead Redemption 2. That project pushed the development team to the brink, requiring late hours and creating a culture of tension and aggression. Seeking to improve its workplace culture, the company ousted several executives and promised a more reasonable schedule, but a massive hack in 2022 complicated things, leading Rockstar to clamp down on remote work and direct employees to return to the office 5 days a week, rankling staff. Now, the staff previously worked 5 days a week in the office, and then with this whole changeover and firing those execs and basically overcompensating, they had this remote work policy, this work from home policy, and it sounds like asking them to come back was a major problem. We saw that a lot with COVID. A lot of people that went work from home, they didn't want to go back to the office. And I don't blame them. I mean, as someone who has worked in an office and worked from home, though, it takes a special kind of person to be productive at home and tune out the distractions and stay focused. So a whole team working for a number of years from home, getting used to that and being able to kind of slack off and especially in this situation, be able to kind of gaslight their managers into lesser quality work that is not delivered on time, that they're slowing down on. I think we're going to see some quality issues with this game just based on this alone. And clearly, I mean, even down further here is they had mentioned that it's been late. And now at least now we're back on schedule. and it's going to be okay. But I don't think it is. I think they've pushed this a number of times this game, and I think it's due to that work from home policy. I think it's due to the fact that they've overcompensated on the crunch. And, you're looking at people who are taking advantage of the situation and delivering lesser quality work in GTA 6. So you're going to see some quality issues. Is this going to be a Cyberpunk 2077 situation? I don't know. It could be. Just based on this alone, it's a possibility. The question then remains, is this team capable enough to take a Cyberpunk-style launch and put their nose to the grindstone and fix those issues and make it right, like Cyberpunk did, like the developers behind Cyberpunk did? I'm not sure. I mean, if returning to the office 5 days a week rankled staff, I don't think these people are going to be in any kind of mood to, push themselves hard enough to get those things done and fix those issues and make it right. So even if it is broken at launch, this is the kind of situation where it might stay broken after launch. I don't really know. It's going to be interesting to find that out, and we'll have to wait and see. But that is yet another aspect that could lead to poor sales, could lead to a failure. Now the next thing I wanted to talk about is let's go into that letter real quick about taking those things out of GTA 5 on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and S. This is the letter. I'm going to link this in the description as well. We are Out Making Games, a group of hundreds of LGBTQ plus games professionals working in the UK games industry. You probably know some of us as individuals. In fact, you probably employ some of us. Now, the other blurb I really want to read here is this one. Given this is an enhanced and expanded edition, change is a selling point. This is a great opportunity to remove transphobic elements from the game and have a positive impact on the new generation of players who will pick up a copy. So right off the bat, they're gaslighting them into thinking that changing the original intention of the game, as minor as it might be, changing that is a good idea. And I mean that's typical activistic gaslighting, I think. And if clearly they fell for it, clearly they have made those changes and removed those things. And so if this is the case, in this group had that influence over Rockstar, I can't imagine there's not a million other groups that have more influence over Rockstar and have made further changes to GTA 6. The last thing I wanted to point out is kind of the crux of this letter, of the reasoning behind this, and that's this paragraph right here. 2020 was one of the most violent years for trans people since recording began. In 2020, over 350 trans and gender diverse people were murdered. Many were killed inside their own homes. These records were compiled by Trans Respect versus Transphobia Worldwide. Now, I read that article too. I'm not going to link all this. I don't want to get too far into the weeds. But needless to say, I did look into that. I also looked into the U.S. homicide rate during that period, and here's what I found. Their report states that the murder rate for gender diverse people from 2019 to 2020 had an increase of 6%. Keep that 6% in mind. The homicide rate in the United States, now this was worldwide, and I couldn't find worldwide statistics for homicide, so we're going to have to just settle for U.S., but the homicide rate in the United States between 2019 and 2020 increased 29.6%. So you're talking over a 20% higher than the trans murder rate or the gender diverse murder rate. So, 6% don't seem so bad in that context, but they're not gonna point that out in this letter or this report at all. So yeah, I mean, in perspective, 2020 was a nasty year. The homicide rate was a lot higher than it was normally, and that was not just in the U.S., that was worldwide. But the U.S. is the statistics I could find. So, enough about being in the weeds, but the fact of the matter is, even the premise of this article, the thing that they say is terrible and awful, is not as terrible and awful as everybody's murder rate in the world. So it's all a matter of perspective. But you know, Rockstar didn't look into that, and they just kowtowed, and they changed what they wanted to change, what they wanted to have changed. And I guess my point is, this is certainly going to be happening in GTA 6. I would suspect that there's probably some kind of a Sweet Baby Inc. kind of situation where there's a bunch of consultants telling Rockstar how to do what they need to do, and putting their own activism into GTA 6. The question for me is how soapboxy that's going to be. How much people are going to pick up on that and tune out. So, assuming that, though, I mean, yet another factor. Combined with all these other factors, you're looking at a lot of things working against GTA 6. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is price. And this has been a contentious issue for a while. This article from AFK Gaming, it does a great job of kind of guessing as to the pricing structure and everything. I think they took a 2-tier pricing approach. I think that GTA 6 is going to have probably three tiers, if not more. So we do differ in opinion on that. But other than that, I think this is a great article. Definitely check it out at your leisure. But needless to say, what they said was they still think that it's going to be a $70 USD price tag. And the collector's edition is going to be between 100 and 120. I suspect there's going to be like an ultimate edition at 200 as well. So that's kind of what I'm going to use in my numbers. But like I said, this is a great article. I think they're on the nose with this. So that's why I'm kind of using their 2 tiers in my estimations as well. But I'm going to add that extra tier on top and keep the pricing at 70, 120, and 200 respectively. And I'm trying to be as generous as I can to give them as much profit as they could get out of this by being that generous about it. So without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and look at that spreadsheet and kind of get into the numbers, get into the weeds on that. So here we go. And what you see here is, we got our pricing structure, 70, 120, and 200. I'm estimating half of those sales are going to be at the $70 price tag. 25% of the sales are going to be at 120, and 25% is going to be at the 200. What that does is it brings us down to an average price of $115 per copy. And I'm also going to be generous about the platform cut as well. Going to give it 5%. Now, as an indie developer, as most developers, they take a 30% cut, but this is Rockstar. This is Take-Two Interactive. They're going to have a special deal. I'm going to give them 5% instead of 30. It might likely be closer to 10 or 15%, but like I said, I'm trying to be as generous as possible, so we're going to say 5%. So with all that data, we kind of have these estimates here at copies sold, and that breaks down into the average price, which then gives you the gross amount, and we take that 5% cut, which gives you the net. And then towards the right here, we've got development costs and marketing costs. Development costs, now, back in, I think it was 2022, they said it had surpassed $1 billion, and it was well on its way to 2. I suspect it's at that $2 billion, if not more, at this point. The other thing I'm going to kind of estimate here is that it's going to be one of the largest marketing budgets of any game, because most of the time, these marketing budgets are as much as development budgets. So this, by all rights, should be about $2 billion. I'm going to reduce $500 million off of that, again, to be as generous as possible, so $1.5 billion. It could be even lower, but again, the dev costs are almost certainly higher, so I think it all evens out in development and marketing costs. I think $3.5 billion is your total cost in for development of GTA 6 and marketing. So I think that those are fair. We can, after this, kind of change this marketing cost down and see what happens. But for today's purposes, for the purposes of my estimations, I'm going to keep this as accurate. So going down the list here, effectively 1 million copies sold is an abysmal failure. They lose $3.3 billion. 10 million copies sold, they lose $2.3 billion. 20 million copies, they lose $1.2 billion. Then they get into the break-even point. 31 million copies sold. It nets them $65 million in profit, which for spending $3.5 billion, $65 million is peanuts. But basically 3.1 million is your break-even point. Once you hit 50 million copies sold, you're at $2 billion of profit. 100 million copies is the $8 billion. And then GTA 5, something I forgot to point out is GTA 5 sold 200 million copies, so this 200 million is a good estimate for that. And that would net them $19 billion in profit. So not bad. If they can get the retail price for all 200 million copies, that would net them a tidy profit. Do I think they're going to get this far? No, not a chance. But then let's go down to 250 million. That's 25 billion in profit. So now they're, these, I would say anything over $100 million is a resounding success. Or 100 million copies sold. 50 million copies, it's still successful. 31 million, it breaks even. Anything under 30 million, it's a failure. It's just how much of a failure it really is. And to put this all in context, I also looked up the platform sales. So the total number of PlayStation 5s and Xbox Series X and S are 65.6 million and 28.3 million. So that's a total of 93.9 million consoles ever sold on these platforms. That doesn't include the consoles that died and had to be replaced. That's just best case scenario. So the best case scenario of their target audience is less than the $100 million mark here. So they're going to have to sell over half to make a decent profit from this game. Over half of their potential consoles in existence that this is being targeted for would have to buy a copy of GTA 6 in order for them to be very profitable. Now, for them to break even, it'd be about a third, and anything less than a third, it's an abysmal failure. I mean, we're talking big numbers. Now, GTA does attract big numbers, but with all those other factors, I can't see this being likely or even possible in some scenarios. I mean, if everything potentially wrong with GTA 6 is wrong with GTA 6 at launch, they're not going to be able to make any money. They're going to lose their shirts on this game. It is going to be a massive failure. It's going to be one of these three. Certainly not one of these three. So, yeah, I mean, that's the numbers. If we want, let's just take 500 million out of this equation. So that's just going to go down to total cost of development and marketing down to $3 billion, which realistically, it's actually more development and less marketing. I would say it's probably 2.5 and 500 million. But that seems to be pretty fair. So in this scenario, if they sold to a third of the available possible consoles that they could target, then they would make a tidy profit of $500 million. But again, still, I mean, you're looking at, instead of these three, these four are a very profitable, very successful game. This is a break-even point still. It's actually probably closer to, what would it be, like 25 million maybe? Nope. 26 million? Close. It's probably... Yeah, so 27 million is your break-even point, 26 and a half maybe. But that's your breaking point if it's only $2 billion for dev costs and $1 billion for marketing. So there you go. That's the that's the situation. And again, I mean, woke or not, successful or not, you're talking about a game that cost a lot of money to make. It is a massive sunken cost that they have to account for. So this is the biggest game, the most expensive game ever developed. It is going to be the biggest launch ever, and if they don't get their copies sold, it is going to be the biggest failure in gaming history. So, high stakes, high risk, high reward, high risk, high failure. And that is the name of the game with GTA 6. And, if I was Rockstar, I would not have sunk that amount of money in because GTA 5 didn't take nearly this much to develop, and it sold like gangbusters. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can take, what would it be, like almost like a fifth of the profits of GTA 5 to develop your GTA 6 game. That's insane. That's gambling with big money, and it's certainly not something I would do. And especially so because you're not getting what you pay for. Bigger teams and more expensive development cycles don't mean better quality, don't mean more sales. And that is a lesson that AAA doesn't seem to be learning. But it is a factor. It is reality. More developers doesn't mean more better. It just means more developers. So that's what I got for you guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you like these kind of videos, subscribe to the channel, and also check out that Hellbreak demo, because it is a lot of fun. It's probably more fun than GTA 6 will be. So that's what I got for you guys. Hope you enjoyed the vid, and I'll talk to you guys later.